Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Peter Cantor and I am the editor-in-chief of FindBiometrics, which reported live from New York last week at the ISC East Security Conference. Our own Doug OGorden was on the exhibition floor speaking to the leading biometrics and identity vendors at the show, getting a read on the pulse of our dynamic and rapidly evolving industry. In this special episode of ID Talk, OGorden speaks with Tony Diodato, co-chair of the Security Industry Association's OSDP working group and owner and CTO of Cypress Integration Systems. If you've been keeping up with ID Talk over the past week, you will certainly know about SIA's OSDP standard. OSDP, of course, stands for Open Supervised Device Protocol. In this interview, Diodato introduces us to his company before delving into what OSDP means for the biometrics industry. It's a fascinating discussion about an important new standard, so let's get to it. Here is FindBiometrics' Doug OGorden in conversation with Tony Diodato, co-chair of SIA's OSDP working group, right here on ID Talk.
Hi, FindBiometrics listeners. Doug OGorden, Content and Media Strategy Manager. I'm here with Tony Diodato. Tony is the co-chair of the OSDP Standards Committee. He's also CTO of Cypress Integration Solutions. Tony's been 40 years in the business. And Tony, tell us a little bit about Cypress and how you got here.
All right. Well, thanks, Doug. Great to talk with you, and especially in New York at this show. It's sort of been a historically throughout the history of Cypress, there's been a significant show. Going back to the 1981, we kind of had our first foray into security, and back then I knew absolutely nothing about the industry and learned a lot through these shows. So it's great to see, that we're back. We're back in New York, and it's a great place to have a show.
It felt very comfortable to be back here, and the size of the show did not suffer at all. I think it was very similar to the last great ISC East, however long, 2019 maybe.
Yep.
You are sort of the, I'll call you the expert in OSDP, being the co-chair and helping the pack, leading the pack on the standards. And that we have, I just interviewed Edison Shen, and it's great to have new leadership in the standards committee and new ideas. What is the deal with OSDP and biometrics?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and keep me on track to make sure I answered it. But
this could go really long if we wanted to.
I did want to mention that we're very privileged to have Edison Shen joining SIA. He's only been on the job for 4 days, and he's kind of thrown into the deep end of the pool right here at ISC East. He's had to meet with committee chairs, myself included, and trying not to overwhelm him with all our status and needs to help our standards move forward. But what a great inspiration and energy that he brings to that role as director. He's got a lot of experience, and I myself am more of a nuts and bolts guy. I mean, I like getting in there and doing the engineering, diddling the bits, and that sort of writing the code. But he brings that political end and that observance of the entire process for going through ANSI and international, and as he said, harmonizing all those standards to make it useful and educating those who are going to be using it and confronted with it. They need to know what's going on. So I'm really excited to work with him in the future, and see what we can do to get OSDP out there and vital.
Well, that's the thing is we need to really kind of talk about how does OSDP help move biometrics forward. That's really the audience that we're talking to in this conversation. But
exactly.
Tell us more about what OSDP is going to do or is doing to speed up the use of biometrics.
I'm by no means an expert on the biometrics themselves. I don't know how the fingerprints are processed or the facial recognition is done. I just know that ultimately the end result of that is some kind of signal to an access control panel, and that panel will then open the door or deny access. And that's where OSDP comes in. Previously, and again, the history of OSDP has been, let's replace Wiegand. It's sort of the de facto standard, not ragging on Wiegand, but any unidirectional, unencrypted, unsupervised protocol needs to be replaced with something a little more robust. Bidirectional, supervised, and encrypted protocol. You have to keep your data secure. I mean, that's sort of the mandate across the board. So with biometrics, from what I understand, you would go through all these processes of ensuring that none of the data leaks, that the personal information is kept secret, et cetera, and then boom, you output Wiegand, and it's vulnerable. So OSDP cleans up that last mile of wire going between the panel and the biometric device, the one that the user interacts with.
When you say that, you mean the communication between the reader and the panel is where you're compromised or where the security risk is with Wiegand currently, and OSDP fixes that.
Yes, it addresses the vulnerability in those unidirectional, whether it be sort of a strobed and serial data communication formats that have been traditional and legacy protocols. And Cypress has actually made a name for itself over the decades by creating products that address some of those issues. But this is doing it right from the source, right from the reader and the panel itself, being able to talk natively OSDP. So that's what our working group is all about. Manufacturers, end users, integrators, we're all on these meetings to get each other's opinions on, how this should all work.
Yeah, I mean, thank you very much, and hope to see you at the next show, and have a great ISC East.
Yeah, well, thank you, and look forward to working with you in the future here on some projects, and good luck with your podcast.
Thanks. Have a good show.
Thanks.
And so concludes our interview with Tony Diodato, co-chair of SIA's OSDP working group and owner and CTO of Cypress Integration Systems. For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, visit cypressintegration.com. And for more live event coverage of ISC East, stay tuned to FindBiometrics.com. Thank you again, Tony, for joining us on this episode, and thank you to Doug OGorden for conducting the interview. Our podcast theme music is by Logomrad. I have been your host, Peter Counter. Thank you for listening to the ID Talk podcast.